Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of FSi DFS Fantasy Baseball Picks. I'm your host, Mike Brewer 31. Hope you had a great weekend. We've got a nice 9-game slate here on Monday, but we've got a huge elephant in the room for the next couple of days and maybe a little bit beyond that, which is the 6 p.m. trade deadline tomorrow on August 1st. Already saw some movement, but these slates could turn into NBA slates where news is imperative to pay attention to right up to lock and maybe some things slightly after lock. So pay attention to the comments too. Just come back and check the video. Locks at 7:05 tonight. So if I see anything around 6:30, I will post it and for you so that you could potentially see if there's going to be any issues or people to avoid because they might be on their way out of their current team onto another team. So that being said, let's jump into today's slate. First game, we have Milwaukee going to Washington. We have Corbin Burnes against Jake Irvin. Burnes has actually definitely been in a really good spot recently. He's been super, super solid, but Washington doesn't strike out a ton and they can be like pesky, annoying, but I think he'll be okay here. I think it's going to come down to Burnes or Glasnow, and I think it's just going to be whatever one you feel more comfortable with, or maybe if you need a couple hundred more in your lineup, which one you go with on either site. So but I think he's definitely in play if you're ready to pay up for your SP1, which I don't see any reason why you wouldn't, other than we do have like Atlanta and Coors Field on the slate. So that might influence your choices if you're trying to get higher price bats there. But I think there's enough lower price bats in both those teams to make it work. So Jake Irvin on their side is a no. The Brewers are definitely one of my favorite cheaper stacks on the slate here. And there's actually some of the cheaper bats here, like Toro has been doing really well recently. He's only at 2.9, and even this Sale Frelick here hitting in the 4th position is I think he's like 3.8, but he's been actually hitting like 400 this, or not 400 this year, 300 this year. So I mean, he's definitely in play and having a solid season, has splits advantage. Washington, I think it's just a leverage stack against Burnes. I'll definitely have one in like $1 or so because I have seen them put it together against good teams. I don't think this is the night for it, but who knows? Wind is blowing in a little bit, so that does help pitching. But I still think some of the bats, especially in Milwaukee, are definitely worth playing and filling in your lineup. Next up, we have Tampa Bay at the New York Yankees, who absolutely got destroyed in the first couple innings against Baltimore yesterday. Rested Judge got a lot of slack for that because he's just since he came back, the 2 games made him more competitive in that lineup, and then sits in the rubber match against a division competitor. But we'll see what they do with the trade deadline and everything. Are they going to mail it in like the Mets are, or are they going to try to get some people to try to make it to the playoffs? We'll have to see. But we have Kyle Glasnow against them. And the wind is blowing out at Yankee Stadium, 82 degrees, 8 miles per hour, which is significant in this stadium. So Glasnow, I think definitely Judge will be back in the lineup, but he's been good against righties. So I think he'll give up a couple runs, maybe 2 or 3, maybe even home runs, but I think he'll have enough strikeouts to definitely be okay to pay off his price tag. So again, it's low strikeout Washington for Burnes, or it's the Yankees offense with some wind against Glasnow. Your choice, America. Herman on the other side, I think he's okay. Like Tampa Bay recently, yes, they put up 8 runs yesterday, but they really haven't through the month of July put up more than 4 runs. Okay, they had 1 6-run against Seattle, but it's been like 1 run, 4 runs, 1 run, 1 run. I guess they put up 10 against Atlanta. So they have had, but it's really been 1, 2, or 3 runs, 4 on occasion on average. They're just not the same Tampa Bay team that they were earlier in the season. And I know they've had some injuries and stuff, and Diaz is banged up. He might not be in the lineup. Franco's has cooled off. He's not what he was. The rest of the team is okay, but not, hitting lights out like they were. They look like Tampa Bay looked like the Braves earlier in the season, if you remember, and now They just kind of have settled in. I know they've had a disaster in the pitching department with a lot of injuries there. So, but this is a good spot with them with the wind and everything. But Herman's been decent some point. So I have him in the no interest category, but I think at 7-3, if you're trying to, a lot of these 7K pitchers, you could probably stack together in tournaments to try to get full stacks of the more expensive teams. So I think he's in play if you're entering more in the 20 max, but there's still some risks there. Bat wise, Tempe, I think, is the GPP, and I think Yankees will definitely just be a leverage stack because I think Glasnow will have a ton of ownership just based on what we saw with the Yankees last night and what we've seen of them recently this season and how good Glasnow has been. Baltimore Orioles and the Toronto Blue Jays, Kyle Gibson against Chris Bassett. Gibson's a no here. Toronto definitely can get to him. Like, I think the Orioles will be looking for some pitching during the trade deadline here. And Gibson's been okay. Wells is starting to show some regression. Kemmer last night didn't do bad. Grayson Rodriguez has a ton of talent, but he's just not there yet on the major league level. So I think they really need to figure something out. So Gibson here, I think being like the old man of the rotation right now, would against Toronto, I really just don't like that. And Bassett on the other side, he's better at home, but this Oriole lineup has just been very good. So I think you can still keep Bassett in play here, but there's so many lefties and switch hitters here that could get to him that it definitely is dangerous to play him in cash. But in the GPP, again, if you're trying to get in expensive bats, you might go some of these 7K range guys. So Baltimore definitely one of the GPP stacks I like, somebody I play on a nightly basis. I just stack the lefties, so Rutschman, Santander, Henderson, O'Hearn, and probably Fraser. He had a home run last night. That's how I'd probably build that one. So 4 to 5 man stack. And then the Blue Jays, just, whoever you want from the team. It's kind of weird that they have like Springer hitting 5th now and Merrifield leading off, but Springer's going to kind of a slump this season. So I kind of get it. Even Chapman's moved down and Brandon Belt's starting to come around a little bit too. So I know it's hard on DraftKings. So you have to make the choice between Belt and Guerrero. It's the same thing that you have to do with Cleveland. You have to make a choice between Naylor and Bell at first base. I just wish, in teams like this that they just get creative and give them like another eligibility or something. But I guess if they're both playing first base or DHing, then there's really nothing that they can do for that. So pitchers are Gibson's a no, Bassett's a maybe, bats are definitely yes. Nice stacks in GPPs. Los Angeles Angels and Atlanta Braves. In Atlanta, almost 90 degrees, wind blowing out at 10 miles per hour, great hitting environment. The Angels made a trade. They got Cron and Grichuk from Colorado. I don't know if they'll be in the lineup yet. They didn't give up any position players, but even with that, I think that it might be a platoon situation with Cron and Moustakas. So we'll have to see how that plays out. And Grichuk probably play outfield, probably taking the place of Trout. So I'll just have to see how that plays out. So but Griffin Canning against the Braves have just been like world class recently. They have a 6.11. That's a course total. They've just been on fire, phenomenal. But Canning has faced some good teams recently and got 7, 8, 9 Ks against them and given up some runs. So I think again, Canning can still be in play potentially in the 7K range. I think he's got some strikeout upside and he might give up some runs, but I don't think he's going to give up like 6 or 7 in the first inning. But again, there is some risk with all these 7K guys. Morton on the other side, I think, is in a good spot here. Just besides Otani and maybe Maniac, the rest of the lineup isn't great. Even if he does get the Grichuk and Cron end up coming out and playing, I think Moustakas will play over Cron anyways, and they're righties, and he's really good against righties. So I think that Morton should be fine here, and probably a nice pivot off of Burns and Glasnow with saving you about $1,000 there, so that could help you get better bats. So Los Angeles is actually pretty cheap without Otani, although I see Moniak's up to 5-1, which is just ridiculous. But Renfroe leading off is decent. Moustakas, not Renfroe, Rengifo, and then Escobar should be, he's like 2K. Cabbage can hit the ball hard. He's 2.5. Like they're just super, super, super cheap here. So definitely a team to consider. And then the Braves, of course, you can always stack them. You just have to find cheap pitching. However, you want to do it. If you want to go Acuna through Murphy, or Ozuna had a home run yesterday, or do a wraparound thing with Harris or Arcia to save you some money, Rosario, like however it works for you. I mean, you can probably, in a 20 max, you can probably stack the Braves every which way and probably still profit on most nights. So, I mean, what else can you say? They're just having an amazing streak here, setting records for home runs and runs and everything. So it's kind of cool to see. Next up, we have Cincinnati Reds and Chicago Cubs in Wrigley Field. The wind is blowing in about 10 miles per hour, so that's definitely an upgrade for pitching. Andrew Abbott has had a decent start. I think he's a little overpriced at 10K here. He does have some strikeout upside, but of the expensive pitchers, I think he'd be my least favorite. Cubs do have some decent right-handed power, even though the wind's going to neutralize it a little bit. Marcus Stroman's a ground Brownwell pitcher here against a Cincinnati team that always has potential. Like Dylan Cruz was in a funk, and they're actually taunting him at Dodger Stadium, and then he just hits one out of the yard. You know, they're calling him overrated and everything. It was just kind of hilarious to see him be like, yeah, overrate this, people. So, but I really kind of think I like Stroman here. I think he can hold this offense in check. They're much better in a Great American Small Park with the wind blowing in. Not to say that they won't put up some runs against him, but I think being a ground ball pitcher with the wind blowing in is really going to help them. So bat wise, Cincinnati 150 max, not interested against Stroman with the wind blowing in, being a ground bound pitcher, and then the Cubs, I think you can use as a leverage stack if Abbott's going to have some ownership, but not really super excited about them with the weather conditions. Cleveland Guardians and the Houston Astros. Noah Syndergaard, they got him in a trade. So when they sent their shortstop out to the Dodgers, and they have so many young infielders that they'd be perfectly fine. Like they felt Arias was ready to go. So, you know, when they sent so they could definitely make that move. And JP France on the other side, pitching wise, Noah Syndergaard's definitely a no. He gives up runs, he gives up stolen bases. Houston's full strength with the offense. I mean, they don't have they're still missing a couple pieces, but I think everything's come together that they're fine. You know, with what they have here, I think this is back to. I think this is going to be the lineup going forward and into the playoffs and everything for them. So no Syndergaard and no JP France. He's had some solid games recently, and this Guardian team again doesn't have a ton of power besides like Jose Ramirez. And you know, they don't put up a ton of runs, so they only have a 3.79 total. And I think with the Houston offense, JP France definitely has a chance to win games, and especially really good play at FanDuel because it goes so deep into games too. They let them go out there 6 or 7 innings, so definitely a chance to get a quality start for you there. So and on DK, I think out of all the 7K guys, I think he's one of the safer ones. So I made the split between medium and low at like 7.5. But at 7.1, I think he's a good value here. So bet wise, Cleveland just in 150 max, not super excited with them, but Astros, like love them here. And looking, I'm going to be stolen base chasing. So it's going to be Pena, it's going to be McCormick, it's going to be Jukes. It's maybe kind of like a wraparound stack, Skip Maldonado, Altuve, Pena, Tucker, or Bregman's just been on fire too recently. So lots of opportunities to stack the Astros there. I really like it. Next, we have Coors Field, but I don't know if this game's going to play. There's like a 65 to 70% chance of rain now again. It's like 6 in the morning on the East Coast here. So a lot can change. Wind blowing across the field, 12 miles per hour. So it doesn't look like this game's going to get in, but if it does, you have Seth Lugo and Austin Gomber. Lugo, I think, is definitely somebody, even though he might be on the trade block against a Colorado team, I don't think it's completely crazy, even though I have him in the low category because he's been a decent pitcher this year, and Colorado has lost two big bats out of their lineup, and they're definitely mailed it in, and they might like end up resembling a AAA team pretty soon. They got some young talent. If it puts together, that's great. If it doesn't, if they're looking towards next year, then they're going to be an easy team to target, even in their own ballpark. And they haven't been great there this year, even with some of their stars. So I'll have to see if they move some more pieces too, like Chris Bryant, who's been always injured, and you know, I think McMahon's the one piece that they'll keep and build around that, and they have like a lot of decent young talent there. So Lugo's in play. Gomber on the other side, he's been solid even in Coors, but I don't think I can play him against the San Diego team. San Diego, I just say be careful with Soto. They're shopping him around because I think that they have an insurmountable lead and that they spent way too much money swinging for the fences here, trying to make the playoffs. Like on paper, they looked elite, but it just didn't work out. And we've seen that happen before with these super teams, that it just doesn't click and it just doesn't work out. And they're in a hard division too. Who knew that Arizona would come on so strong? Who knew that San Francisco would have some decent young players and put together? And everybody, you had to know that the Dodgers were, going to remain strong, even though they lost some players in the offseason and their pitching has been kind of banged up. So, if this game does play, they have a 7 total here. So obviously San Diego is going to be a top stack on the slate. But again, you can pretty much look through the lineup and pick who you want. Always consider Grissom at the bottom of the lineup. He's been having a phenomenal season quietly, hitting 9th. And, we know Tatis, Machado, Soto, if he's there, can be good. Xander will probably be at shortstop because Kim got injured and probably won't be in the lineup there. So Tatis will probably lead off. Campusano as a catcher at 3-1 is very cheap for Coors, and he is been really good recently, has a splits advantage. So I think a lot of people play Sanchez, but I think Campusano is the much better player at this point. And Matthew Batten might crack the lineup also, playing first or third at 2,800. So a lot of cheap bats to mix in with the expensive ones if you don't want to pay down for pitching. But if you want to go full throttle and try to get Tatis, Machado, Soto, and Xander Bogaerts in your lineup with Sanchez, then you can definitely use some of the 7K pitchers we talked about. Maybe even Lugo if you're feeling kind of crazy. I don't think it's that crazy there. And then Colorado, they just be a cheap stack to throw in there. They're probably going to be cheap all year now. Highest priced one's probably going to be McMahon, maybe Tovar at 4.2, but everybody should be below, in the low 4Ks or less for the rest of the year on this team, unless they make some other moves with the deadline. Boston and Seattle, Pivetta actually starting. We all got if you played the late slate yesterday, it's like, oh, long reliever, great situation, let's throw him in, didn't pitch. So I guess they're saving him to actually be a pitcher today and actually not open the game, but actually be a starting pitcher and go out there and actually pitch. He's been actually really good since he come back from injury and been long reliever role. He gets a Seattle team that is has cooled off since the beginning of the season, also not even worse than Tampa Bay. And the potential is always there, but he's been some reverse splits a little bit, so it does concern me a little bit with the power of Suarez and Rodriguez, but I think he'll be fine here at 6.6. Is definitely price tag, 14 DK points, and I'm happy. Kirby on the other side has been very decent, but he gets a lot of lefties here, so it's a little bit concerning, but I think he'll be okay. I like Morton for a little bit more, but Kirby, I think if you need just some savings off Morton, could work for you. Bat-wise, definitely have to play a left-handed stack against him, so Duran, Yoshida, Devers, Cassis, Verdugo, just find as many lefties in this Boston lineup, throw them all in your lineup and your GPP, and you're good to go. And then Seattle, like I said, don't be afraid to play the righties against him. So I think you can stack against Pivetta, especially if he's going to have some ownership here in a GPP, and take J-Rod, Suarez, Raleigh, Teoscar Hernandez, and then even France there. So pick up your favorite 4 to 5 power bats from Seattle. And there you go. Final game on the slate we have is Arizona Diamondbacks and San Francisco Giants. The one note I have here is going to be 60 degrees, so it's going to be cooler. But the wind is blowing out 24 to 30 miles per hour. And usually wind doesn't really affect this ballpark because of the way it's built, but that's a significant amount of wind. So I kind of really like the bats in this game. Ryan Nelson, not interested in. Alex Cobb has been okay, but not going to play him against Arizona. And there's no total in this game because he's still a question mark if he's the one that's starting, or it could be somebody else. So if it is somebody else, that makes Arizona even better play. So give me the Arizona bats in this situation. I play them every single day. And then San Francisco on the other side, definitely. I think Wade will be back in the lineup. I know he's questionable, but he was resting his back. And then yesterday they were facing a lefty, and it had been lefty on lefty, so it didn't make sense to play him. But I think he'll return to the top of the lineup. Peterson, Conforto. I know Yaz is a little banged up too. Bailey. So I just, against Ryan Nelson, just throw as many lefties or switch hitters here as you possibly can. Maybe not Crawford in the bottom lineup, but he definitely gives you some salary relief if you're doing like a wraparound stack. So let's look at some builds and get you on your way to start your week for a Monday. So I am not taking Atlanta. I'm not taking San Diego in cash. Or I'm not going to give you examples of them. I already talked through in this video here. San Diego, you know what to do. There's plenty of options if the weather's going to hold up there. Atlanta on the other side, again, like I said, you can stack them any which way possible. Every single bat in that lineup is in play. So, definitely play around with them in like a 20 max or whatever. Build as many teams as you want to. That's fine. But where I'm going to go in my cash games today is I want these Houston bats. I think they're going to destroy Syndergaard, and the Angel bullpen's not great either behind him. I think they're going to steal some bases, be power. So my core is Pena, Jukes, McCormick, and Tucker. Then you choose if you want to take Bregman or Altuve there, or Maldonado, however else you want to fill out the stack. But I'm going to fill in with Milwaukee. You could do Colorado. There's so many other ways you can go here. Glasnow or Burns are going to be my pitchers. Whatever one you want to take here. Same thing with FanDuel. I'm going to give you Contreras because there's a little bit more money in FanDuel, and he's easier to get up to at catcher there. But again, I'm going to fill in with Milwaukee. Pena, Jukes, McCormick, Frelick opens up some salary for you. So you pick who your fourth Houston guy is. If you take Burns and at second base, that's probably the weakest position, even though I like Toro. He doesn't really fit in the stack because he's so far away from the other bats. But it's like if you're taking a one-off, then a one-off bat in the same lineup isn't bad. So, but you have to do it with Glasnow. So if you're taking Burns, then you're just going to take another second base one-off there. For GPP, give me Stroman. I like Morton also, but Stroman's going to give you a little bit more salary there with the wind blowing in against Cincinnati at Wrigley. And then here I'm taking the Giants and I'm taking Arizona. So Wade Jr., if he's not in the lineup, then I'll go Walker there. Marte, third base, JD Davis or Rivera, whoever you want to pick there. Perdomo, Conforto, Peterson, I'll let you decide if you want to go with Yaz or a San Francisco outfielder there, or pay up for Carroll. On FanDuel, same thing. Morton, Marte, Davis, Perdomo, Peterson, Conforto. You can decide if you want to pair up for Carroll. Wade Davis, if he's in there for first base. If not, we're going Walker, and then figure out how to fill out the rest of your line. Remember, Arizona has like that. His name starts with, who is it? Calzone is usually really cheap batting fifth as a lefty there, or even like McCarthy or Alex Thomas are cheap guys that should have splits advantage to fill your lineup on both sides. So I got for you. If you have any questions, put them in the chat below. Again, probably check back the video at 6:30 if I see any news for trade deadlines or have a better read on if Colorado is going to play tonight in Coors Field with the rain. I'll put some notes on that to help you out. And again, if you want to reach out to me personally for some lineup advice or anything, my DMs are open on Twitter, which is now called X, at MegaRoto31. And if you want more information on FSi DFS, you can go to the description of the video and you can get into our Discord, and it's relatively cheap compared to other sites. Come in, check us out. We've got a nice VIP package across the slate, across the site, which gives you PGA, NASCAR, MLB, and Women's World Cup currently. Our soccer program is still going strong. And if these videos help you, then I appreciate you watching, and especially deep into the video. So that's a great thing. So appreciate that. But if you can help us back by liking the video, subscribing to our channel if you haven't already, and sharing with your friends, that just helps us get our information out to more people. So appreciate that. Good luck in your contests. Check back at 6:30 for some updates, and I'll see you next time.